was 1963 when Professors Thomas Kurtz and John Kemeny, who were mathematics and computer science professors at Dartmouth College, decided to create a language for students in the non-scientific fields to create computer programs for those fields, such as business. And the result was a language called BASIC, which was an acronym for Beginner's All-Purpose Symbolic Instruction Code. Initially, BASIC ran on primarily time-sharing systems until 1975, when MITS came out with their Altair 8800 personal computer. This was the first personal computer for public consumption, and it was sold via an ad in Popular Electronics for $439 as a kit. You had to assemble it, or you could buy one pre-assembled for much more money. But if you see the picture here, there's no monitor, there's no keyboard, there's no mouse. Those didn't exist at the time. Instead, this was a box, and there were switches that you would flip to enter data or to program it in binary mode, and then lights that would light up to provide the output, again in binary mode. There wasn't a whole lot it could do until a few months later, when Paul Allen and Bill Gates went to MITS and proposed that they create a basic programming language for the Altair. And that was the beginning of Microsoft. So Paul Allen and Bill Gates developed first their Altair basic program, and then a few years down the road, the IBM PC came out, and they developed the Microsoft DOS operating system, and also GW Basic, which was their version of BASIC for the DOS operating system. That's what I initially taught when I began teaching programming fundamentals. I was teaching using GW Basic on an IBM PC that had no graphics, it was simply text. And a few years later down the road, Microsoft came out with Windows, and they came out with Quick Basic, which provided a Windows format, but again, it was basically colored text. There was no graphics at that point, other than creating images with blocks of text. The first visual program for creating software for the market was HyperCard on the Macintosh. And that was where I got started in creating visual applications. And of course, most of us are probably visually oriented, and the appeal of creating a visual application versus just a text-based one was huge for me, and really got me started in wanting to develop software. So I did that with HyperCard, and its language was called HyperTalk. It was only available on the Macintosh. Originally it was only black and white, and eventually there was another product called SuperCard that supported color. And then in 1991, as Windows began to take more shape, Microsoft created Visual Basic that allowed us to create programs visually using forms or windows and controls such as labels and buttons and text boxes and images, and then code those functionally with the BASIC programming language. And you'll see that Visual Basic in 1991 resembles very much what Visual Basic looks like today in 2024. There were several versions of Visual Basic, so version 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there was VB6, came out in 1998. And that was the last of this format of Visual Basic. And Microsoft then came out with .NET. So Visual Basic kind of went into two areas. There was Visual Basic .NET, which the interface looks very much like Visual Basic 6, but the coding language has some different syntax and structure to it. They also created Visual Basic for applications, which is how we create macros for Microsoft Office, primarily Word and Excel. Today, Visual Basic .NET is really just referred to as Visual Basic, and the Visual Basic for applications is more commonly referred to as VBA. So that's a brief history of Visual Basic. The Visual Basic .NET, or Visual Basic we'll learn in this course, is a little bit different from the VBA. VBA is really based more on the VB6, but learning Visual Basic in this object-oriented format as it stands today as .NET will certainly assist you in migrating to create macros with Word and Excel using VBA. If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the Programming Practicum playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos I create, you can click my picture in the top right to subscribe to the channel.